Koto, welcome to the Napier People and Places Committee meeting, the 17th of March, St Patrick's Day. We will open with our karakia. Tutawa mai e ronga, tutawa mai e raro, tutawa mai e roto, tutawa mai e waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, homie, here, ta e kia. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Council's Facebook page. Apologies, we have an apology from Councillor Wright. Are there any other apologies? If there are none, would somebody like to move and second apology for Councillor Wright?
Sorry, are you able to include Councillor Tapani until he arrives? Sure.
Okay, so we will include Councillor Tapani. Apologies for lateness. Mover and the seconder. Sorry, who said that? Oh, thank you. Councillor Mawson, seconded Councillor Crystal. All those in favour say aye. All those against say no. Right, are there any conflicts of interest? No conflicts of interest. I think, team, if you want to get my attention, perhaps if you put your hand up might be easier than putting the hand up, the little gold hand on the screen. Thank you. Right, so for our public forum, we have two visitors from the CEDAM group, the Emergency Management Group, Lily Folds and Jay Sutherland, to talk to us, I understand, about the public education campaign in the case of tsunami. Remember last People and Places Committee meeting, we agreed to remove all the sirens and ask that we be kept informed on the public education campaign to inform our people on what to do when and if disasters occur. So I'll hand it over to our guests, and Antoinette, are you introducing them, or would they just like to introduce themselves?
Through you, the chair, I can introduce our guests. We've got Lily Folds from Hawke's Bay Civil Defence Emergency Management Group and Jay Sutherland, also from the Hawke's Bay Emergency Management Group, online in response to a request from Council around the public education on tsunami warnings. They've prepared a presentation which they're going to run through now. Thanks, Lily.
Yeah.
Kia ora, Antoinette. I'll just share my screen now. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou, kia kōrero ahau mō tēnei kaupapa. Thank you for having myself and Jay Sutherland, my team leader, here with me to speak to you today. Just to reiterate what's already been spoken about, well, today we are speaking to you about the public education campaign. And this is a result of, in the last council meeting, Hawke's Bay Civil Defence Group, or Civil Defence, and Napier City Council have recommended the removal of Napier tsunami sirens. This was based on a report from the Massey University and GNS, which found that the sirens aren't fit for purpose as a public alerting system. The report has concluded that emergency mobile alerts, or EMAs, as they're known by, should be considered as the key public alerting system for Hawke's Bay. And this is supported and supplemented by other mechanisms such as the Red Cross Hazard app and other public education campaigns. And so what I want to speak to you today about is the overview of the Civil Defence's Community Engagement Team's Tsunami Education Plan. What I will say is that this is a multifaceted education plan. It does have quite a few arms to it. And these are shared objectives between Civil Defence and Napier City Council. We are keen for, and we do encourage that if you have feedback about the work plan, we would like to hear from you about that as well. So one part of the education campaign we have is the tsunami signage. So we will continue to work with Napier City Council to install tsunami signage in Hawke's Bay. First, we have the tsunami information boards. Recently, we've updated the review for the tsunami information boards, what you can see here on the slides. This was based on feedback from the community as well as our partner agencies. And what you see here on the tsunami information boards now is the Longer Strong Get Gone campaign from the National Emergency Management Agency. It's quite a successful campaign. Key messages, so key survival facts in case there is a tsunami, so what you need to do. And the map that says where you are in relation to where your safe zone is. Importantly, what the Tsunami Information Board also has is a QR code. So if you do take a photo of the QR code, it will send you to our website, which will lead you into building your own evacuation plans, as well as our website there at the bottom. We are in the process of making the sign bilingual, so we will have te reo incorporated into the signs. We are working with our Māori advisors across the councils to get that finalised, and that should be finalised shortly. We also have evacuation route signs. So this indicates to the community and visitors as well if that you are in a tsunami inundation zone, which way you need to head to get out of the inundation zone into a safe zone. Finally, we have blue lines. So following the very successful feedback from Wellington Regional Emergency Management Office, implementing blue lines in Wellington, Napier City Council and Civil Defence have agreed to paint blue lines in key locations across Napier. And this is to indicate that once you get beyond this blue line, you will be in a safe zone. What I will say is that the process of identifying key locations is quite a robust and complex process. We have to engage with different stakeholders such as the community members and, for example, wakakotahi for roads that aren't managed by council. So there's a bit of a process in installing the signs. In terms of timelines, the tsunami information boards, we have installed 3 signs so far in February. So at the West Shore Surf Life Saving Club toilet blocks, the aquarium and the pump track. We intend to install up to 7 or so more across the beachfront, and that's across from West Shore down to Awatoto. That should be done. That will be done this year. Following this, we'll be installing evacuation route signs across 5 or 6 key roads. We will be doing this. We'll start the process this year, and this will be done next year. We will also have the blue lines painted across Napier Hill, Poraiti, Puketapu, and Taradale, and along some key roads next year. And finally, some further tsunami information boards across installed at parks and reserves and other key shopping centres next year as well. So the whole of the tsunami signage will be completed and installed by the end, should be installed and completed by the end of next year. A shakeout. Shakeout is our national earthquake drill and tsunami hikoi, and that's in October. And it's an opportunity for everyone in Aotearoa to practice their drop, cover and hold. And if they do live in a tsunami, do live or visit a tsunami zone, to practice and plan for their tsunami hikoi. Last October, we partnered with Volunteering Hawke's Bay. So the volunteers from Volunteering Hawke's Bay called and reached out into our communities across Hastings and Napier through phone calls and emails to make sure that people, one, understood or knew what shakeout was, if they'd registered, and if they hadn't, if they needed support to register. Last year in total, there were over 21,000 people that participated in shakeout, and Hawke's Bay, Volunteering Hawke's Bay managed to reach up to over 700 people via phone and emails. There was a lot of great feedback from the volunteers. They said that big partner agencies were quite keen to get involved into shakeout. And overall, there was really good feedback. This year, we plan to engage Volunteering Hawke's Bay earlier, so probably in August, so that we can get far more reach into our communities. And hopefully, we will also have a feedback and evaluation process after shakeout. Just to call back those people to say, were there any challenges with registering for shakeout? Were there any improvements that you'd like to see as well? Last year we went into schools. So for example, we did Shakeout at Port Ahuriri School, and we helped our tamariki practice their drop, cover and hold and tsunami evacuation. And this year we plan to do that again as well. A tsunami hikoi. So tsunami hikoi, as civil defence, support East Coast Life at the Boundary or East Coast Lab to run this campaign, and I'll talk a little bit more about who East Coast Lab is further on in the slides. It's an opportunity for anyone who lives, works or visits a tsunami evacuation zone to practice or plan or practice for the evacuation routes. So we've just finished that tsunami hikoi for this year last week. And we managed to contact all schools and early learning services in Napier. We also reached out by email to Te Tai Whenua o Te Whanganui a Orotu, Tsunami Tourism Hawke's Bay, Napier Business Association and Terrell Business Association, as well as our Safer Napier partner agencies as well. Tsunami East Coast Lab at the moment don't have a registration process like Shakeout does, but they are in future planning to incorporate a registration process. So we're able to see how many people are registered for Tsunami hikoi in Napier as well. There was a bit of a challenge with Tsunami hikoi this year with Omicron outbreak, so people might not have been able to participate the way they have done in previous years. So the key messages for this year was to practice safely, and if you can't get out and practice with your whānau, then log into our portal or reach out for your neighbours and support about how you would plan for a Tsunami hikoi as well. Other campaigns we do are public education and workshops with our key communities or our vulnerable whānau as well. So key networks that we want to reach out to this year are an older persons network, as well as our disability network as well. So for example, through Napier City Council in their retirement villagement plan, and also reaching out to our communities through public talks. A key issue we have in our public talks is what happens if for example, our older people don't have phones to receive an emergency mobile alert. And what we really do in our public talks or our workshops is encourage our people, not only our older people, but also our whānau that don't have particular resources to receive an emergency mobile alert, that they really understand and work with their whānau or their neighbours and really build that resilience so that if, for example, they don't have a phone for an emergency mobile alert, their neighbours might be able to reach out to them to say that, hey, there's been an earthquake somewhere, and that we want you to evacuate. We also really encourage and teach the natural warning signs for an earthquake. So if there is that long or strong earthquake, that everyone needs to evacuate. So those are really the key messages in terms of tsunami that we share for those networks. We will also reach out to businesses. So Civil Defence are planning to business continuity planning month in August. So we're reaching out to businesses across Napier then. Tourist operators as well through our networks. Kaingaroa project we'll be supporting Te Puni Kōkiri for their project to enhance resilience at marae. So for example, if Napier did need to evacuate, marae and Hastings will have better resilience to be able to support people that way too. We also facilitate a lot of public education and workshops as requested by the community as well. Some of the other engagement methods that we do, so we do have ongoing communication plans, particularly through our Facebook and our website, that is ongoing. Te Hikoi a Rua Moko is our book for tamariki, which talks about earthquake and tsunami preparedness. And that's given to every child in their before school check. And often when we visit schools as well, we hand them out as well. At the moment, we're translating it into 5 other languages. That's Samoan, Tongan, Cook Island, Chinese, and Hindi. And we plan to have those translated this year. Last year, we rolled out our Know Your Zone campaign. And so we sent out stickers for our letter boxes or our front doors, followed as well as a letter to 20,000 properties across Hawke's Bay. Other campaigns that we support are the National Emergency Management Agency. So for example, the very successful Long or Strong Get Gone campaign that is run across Aotearoa. And recently we've collaborated with NEMA to update our national tsunami resources. So updated our brochures and banners and things like that. We continue to support Safe in Napier through their partner agencies. So for example, Napier City Council or Neighbourhood Support Network events. We have very strong relationships and we regularly collaborate with the Napier organisations and social services agencies. An example we had recently is doing a public education talk into Enliven, where we spoke to a lot of older people there about the hazards and risks that they may face. And we recommended, following that neighbourhood support, go in and reach them at their grassroots level to really engage with them and build their networks there. Continue to support Napier City Council with the Safest Houses project, and attend and support their community events by sharing resources, banners, brochures, and reaching into our community members that way as well. Community resilience plan. So this is where we discuss our hazards as well as the resources in a community so that if there was an emergency, they would be able to support themselves better. At the moment, we are updating the Tangi 2 community resilience plan and brochure. So that's in the Bayview and the surrounding areas. And we'll be looking into Waipatiki as well. So the review is being finalized. There's been some delays with the Omicron outbreak, but the review is being finalized and we plan to distribute those with the community champions this year, shortly this year. Key areas that we've agreed with Napier City Council that be a priority to work with West Shore, Hills Host, the Napier Hill project, and Te Awa. So those are the community resilience plans with this year. As I touched on briefly earlier, East Coast Life at the Boundary is essentially the link between civil defence and our research partners. So if there are research, for example, about the Hikurangi subduction zone, they connect our civil defence with the researchers so that we have key knowledge to be able to share with our communities from an emergency management lens. Hawke's Bay Civil Defence is a member, but is also the chair of the steering group. Ministry of Education school clusters. So last year in August, the Ministry of Education hosted us at Civil Defence to come and talk to all the principals, or at least invite all the principals and boards of schools to come and understand the hazards and risks that are pertinent to Napier. One of the key objectives of that education sessions is that we put up maps on the board and we really wanted to understand where schools were planning to evacuate to. So through the post-it notes, we got a better understanding of where key areas are that the schools are planning to evacuate to or planning for their safe zones. And from there, we really wanted to plan about what kind of resources are needed for those areas and for those schools. A key objective of the understanding about where those safe zones were is we planning to have cluster group meetings between those schools so that the schools can work together to build their emergency management plans. A key challenge I find when I reach out to schools or when I talk to schools is that schools often feel like they're doing the emergency management plans in isolation, but it's a key outcome, or I think what will be a really good thing from the cluster group meetings, that these schools can network and work together to build their emergency management plans together. So that was meant to happen late last year, but because of the Omicron outbreak, we are planning to hold the workshops in May. So that's about term 2. We also plan to talk about the Tsunami Pro Project. So this was a resilience fund project on behalf of National Emergency Management Agency. And what you'll see here in the photo is the PO that the school designed to indicate to not only their school, but their visitors of the safe zone. So once you get to that point, you are safe from tsunami inundation. That was a pilot project, and we are planning to, if schools, for example, want to work together to say that at this point we can design a PO, something that's relevant to their community, their school, and designed by them so that it really means something to them, that once they get there, they know exactly what that means to them. So we'll be sharing that project and the feedback and the process to the principals in those cluster groups. Finally, but not least, we also attend community events as they happen. There have been some challenges with the recent COVID outbreak, so they haven't happened as much as we would like them to, but we are intending to attend them when they happen. So we have our civil defence marquee, we hand out brochures, we do lots of different engagement activities with people, and sometimes we have giveaways too. What I will say finally is that we are keen for feedback. So if you do have ideas on things that you think that would be relevant for our work plan and make sure that it is fit for purpose, then we do encourage that feedback from you as well. And I'm happy to take any, myself and Jay Sutherland, my team leader, are happy to take any questions you have any now.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation, very informative, and it gives us a good understanding of the nature and scope of the work that you're doing within our communities, and that's great. With the transition from a siren system to the new smartphone system, will you be doing, or is there any plans to do anything particular to inform the wider community in Napier? There was a fair bit of chatter in social media after we made our decision to support the removal of the sirens. So there's a fair bit of chatter amongst people living in Napier around that change. Is there anything particular that you think needs to be done to inform the general public about the change, bearing in mind that the alerting system, I assume, is for all hazards, not just the hazards that you've covered off this morning?
I definitely think through different education campaigns that I spoke in the slides, we already reach out to communities to inform them that the emergency mobile alert system is in place. And there has been feedback, obviously some concerns about people that possibly don't have phones and what that might mean for them. And we do work through different resources and options that they might have that might work specifically for that whānau. So definitely it has been ongoing about what the emergency mobile alert system is and what it can do for our community. Yeah, so I'm not sure, Jay, if you had anything you wanted to add to that.
I guess just to reassure the council that as we progress through this, decommissioning and removal of sirens, that there is consistent and constant, messaging. We've done, Facebook and media releases, and as Lily said, we address this every time we speak to people, because we know it's a common thing for people to understand.
Right, I don't see any other hands up. If nobody else wishes to question or ask the presenters, I'd like to thank you both very much for that very informative presentation. Much appreciated. It really filled out quite a few gaps. We did approve the decommissioning. We approved it at our last council meeting. So all the best for putting the new program into place. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So moving on, the next item is announcements by the Mayor.
Thank you, and through the chair, earlier this week, of course, on the 15th of March, marked the 3rd anniversary of the mosque shootings and the loss of 51 lives. This was the most horrific terrorist attack ever experienced in our country, and we will always remember and acknowledge the 51 Shaheed who died. It's important that we acknowledge and remember the many lessons that were learnt from this, and the Muslim community led the way with their strength, resilience and generosity. So 3 years on, we must all continue to honour the memory of those who were lost, to make our country a better home for all that live here, and I felt it was really important to acknowledge that in today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's no announcements from the chairperson. Is there any notification of minor matters that are not on the agenda? I don't see any hands up, so the next item is announcements by management.
No announcements by management that I know of, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The confirmation of minutes. Would somebody like to move that the minutes of the Napier People and Cases Committee meeting held on Thursday, the 3rd of February 2022 be taken as a true and accurate record of the meeting? Moved by Councillor Mawson, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour say aye or put your hand up. All those against say no or put thumbs down. Right, carried, thank you. Right, we have 2 agenda items. The first one is the Miki Meter Initiative, seeking a decision of council for us to make a funding application on behalf of funding this particular program. So Ms. Belinda McLeod is going to introduce this topic to us.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think the paper's fairly self-explanatory. We would like to support Levi by applying to Eastern and Central Trust for funding for the Meki initiative. We have been in consultation with Eastern and Central Trust, and they are very keen for us to make an application to support Levi. We have already put the application in as advised by Eastern and Central Trust, dependent on what the outcome is from this committee today. Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, Councillor Price.
Just a couple of questions. How long has this been operating, please?
Since last year, 2021, in the summer of 2021, it first kicked off.
So why is it a decision of council?
Because we have to be able to get the funding from Eastern and Central Trust within this financial year, and the only way we can do that is to get a decision from council today to be able to meet the Eastern Central Trust time frame.
Okay, and I take it they're going to apply for a charitable status so they can fund themselves in the future.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. They're in the process of doing that now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Yes, the report was very had good explanation and understanding. My question relates to if we make the application and become the conduit through which the funding is secured, do we carry any risk or liability should the activity cease to function for whatever the reason, or if the outputs that are applied against aren't delivered on?
Through the chair, as far as I'm aware, no, that will not happen. I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that, Natasha.
Kia ora. I do, through the chair. As the fund holder, there would be an element of risk because we are responsible for receiving the grant and ensuring that the accountability requirements are met, which we are fully on top of. Belinda, as the funding advisor, will be monitoring and making sure that all accountability requirements are met. It's a relatively small grant, which we are confident that the accountability and the delivery will be met.
Councillor Crown.
Through you, Madam Chair. Love this initiative. It's only created great positivity in the community that I know of so far. But I was wondering, do we have a precedent around this? Is this something, this sort of innovation and this creative thinking, is this something that we've undertaken on behalf of someone before?
I can answer that, Belinda, if you like. Through the chair, yes, we have done this before for a number of organisations. It's a role that we've taken while the capacity of organisations is built up and these requirements for charitable trusts have been undertaken by those organisations.
Just adding to the information that's in the paper, this has been a very successful, positive project, as Councillor Crown said, particularly for Maraenui. It has enabled scores, possibly hundreds of locals to access free exercise programs that they have avidly supported and attended 3 times a day at the shopping centre, and it's really made a difference to their lives. And Levi Armstrong, who was doing this as part of his master's research for his master's degree thesis at EIT, was awarded his master's on the strength of the presentation that he made for his thesis on this particular initiative, and he got an A. So it's been an extremely worthwhile project. I'm proud that our council did support it initially with some COVID funds, and I'm thrilled that that there's an opportunity for this to continue with a teacher who Levi has mentored. So I'm kind of speaking in support of the recommendation, which we haven't actually tabled as yet. But are there any other questions or comments that anyone would like to add? If not, there are 2 recommendations that we will do together, which are that the Napier People and Places Committee, first of all, make a decision of council under delegated authority to enable the funding application to Eastern and Central Community Trust to be submitted and processed this financial year. And do you want to speak, Councillor Tapani? Just let me finish reading out the recommendation and then we'll put you first on the speakers list. And secondly, approve an external funding application of $25,000 to Eastern and Central Community Trust on behalf of LW Confederation Limited to assist with the lease of the mobile fitness container and trainer costs. So is there a mover and a seconder, please? A mover and a seconder? Right, Councillor
Crown.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Councillor Crown and Councillor Mawson. Councillor Crown moving it, Councillor Mawson seconding it. Would you like to now, Ape Tapine, did you want to speak to this, or can you wait, or did you have a question?
I did have a question, Madam Chair, but it can wait till after the motion.
Right, okay. Councillor Mawson or Councillor Crown, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Mawson. Yeah, really happy to move this today. A great example of us being able to support a really positive, successful initiative, community-led initiative, which is just on a fantastic trajectory. Seeing the way that the leadership has been built up, you know, it's not just one person, Levi at the top anymore. He's bringing people with him, and I think that is, you know, just a fantastic result in building connectivity, resilience, and the health and well-being of our community. So really happy to support it.
Councillor Tapine, do you want to ask a question now?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Wonderful comments, and I fully endorse those from Councillor Crown. Question to Belinda or Natasha, if I may, please. Absolutely speaking in favour of the paper on the table, but my question is around, do we, as the parent body applying for the funding, do we have an opportunity to view or understand the data and the metrics that Meter will gather, so that we can help better define the outputs in well-being and social change as a result of. It's just another monitoring mechanism that'll add good connection at Levi's end and with his study. But I'm also aware that it gathers well-being data, activity data, that type of thing. And so are those metrics unique to Levi and his work, or will there be the ability for us to gain some understanding of how we're seeing well-being improve within the suburb?
Kia ora, Councillor Tapani. Yes, through the chair. I think what I would like to suggest is that we invite Levi and his crew to present to council, and so that there is a level of understanding of what is being achieved. I know many of the councillors have been down at the pod themselves, but also have potentially read some of Levi's reports already, and also acknowledging the Mayor has instigated a lion's den in the past, where we have collaborated with other funders, and this is part of that. This is one of the outcomes of that lion's den, if you like, whereby funders came together and rallied around this project to achieve more sustainability. So in short, yes, we can access the data and the differences being made to wellbeing, physical and mental health wellbeing, through this project, because it is part of the monitoring that they undertake. And we can share that, but ideally it would be good if Levi and his crew came and shared that with you at maybe at a 6-month period, or when the report's due to Eastern and Central.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you, Natasha.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Tapani. Would you like, anybody else like to speak? Councillor Mawson?
Yeah, just supporting this awesome initiative. And the cool thing with this is Levi's taken the community along with him. You know, this is my industry, and you know, to actually have the amount of people that turn up day in, day out when they're open to the pod is just absolutely outstanding. And full credit to Levi. You know, this is obviously something that's helped him along, but honestly, the community are really better for it. So great work.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or people who'd like to speak? Councillor Price, you're unmuted. No? Okay, there was an action point that came out of that recommendation from Natasha, that we invite Levi to come and present to us, hopefully in a public forum, partway through the progression of this project. So if there's no further comments, and Councillor Crown, right of reply. Okay. Yes, Councillor Crown. Sorry.
Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Right. We have 2 recommendations in front of us: the decision of council and the approval of the external funding application. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour say aye, raise your hand. All those against say no. Right. Did I get it right? Did everybody vote in favour of that? Was there anybody who voted against it, for the record? No. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Belinda and Natasha. Great project. Moving on, our second and final item is the Napier Social Monitor Report 2021. We have Dr. Virgil Troy and Natalia Reek here from CEL, the organisation that did the actual social monitor for us. And I'd like to ask Michelle Griggs, Senior Advisor Policy, to open the discussion on this. Thank you.
Tamari koutou, tēnā koutou, Chair Bogue, Mayor Wise and committee members, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce this paper reporting on the Social Monitor 2021 results. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it was a year ago that we were here reporting on the the previous survey. So yeah, it's great to be here to update you on latest findings. And as Chair Bogue said, Dr. Virgil Troy is here from SIL Research, and he will provide an overview of the survey findings for you. Firstly, though, I'd like to introduce the paper and just to talk briefly about how the survey will inform our work here at Council and how we plan to distribute it to stakeholders. So the paper in front of you provides a summary of findings from the 2021 Napier Social Monitor. And as you know, this is an annual survey of Napier residents aged 18 and over, representing a cross-section of the Napier population. This particular survey was done last year in August-September 2021, and it's worth noting that 4 days into data collection, the August level 4 lockdown was announced, followed shortly thereafter by a move to level 3 in Hawke's Bay and then to level 2. So all of that happened within the space of this data collection, so it's important to note that. As with the previous monitor, a number of methods were used to encourage response from residents to complete the survey, and these included social media and online links to set the survey form, postal survey forms that were distributed to about 500 households across the city. Phone call surveys were done as well by SIL Research. And this has greatly improved representativeness and response to the survey. This time around, we had 610 responses, up from 450 the year prior. And this gives us a really solid number for analysis. It might have been because people were sitting around in level 4 and level 3 lockdown. There's opportunity to do a survey, but we'll take that. The 2021 monitor included new extended questions around safety. We wanted to delve into that a bit more. It also included new questions on diversity and inclusion and new questions on climate change views and behaviours. And these will be used as benchmarks for work that Council's got on our work programme coming up. Comparisons are made in the report to previous social monitors and also to the community safety survey that was done in 2020, you might remember that. And we also did a COVID-19 wellbeing survey in 2020. And we've also compared results to Regional Council's climate change survey that they did recently. So information from the survey will be shared with stakeholders, internal and external to Council, and will be used to inform our own work programme. We've developed a plan for distribution following acceptance of this paper by Council, and that distribution plan is outlined for you in the paper. So just very briefly, findings from the survey support the focus areas of the Safer Napier programme, which you heard about earlier from Civil Defence in their presentation. And you will all know that that programme recently achieved reaccreditation late last year. And they're about to work with signatories to review the strategic plan and priorities for that work programme. So this information will help inform that. Similarly, we are also using the information from this monitor to inform our work with police on prioritising and coordinating resources and response in the community quick response plans. We are using the information as well from the monitor to help with rolling out our disability strategy and our positive ageing strategy. So again, it's just adding to our intel about what the community are feeling, where are some of the areas where we might need to focus. And it will also help inform with development of new areas such as a multicultural strategy that is planned for the new financial year. And generally just with tracking key measures of wellbeing in our community. So the next monitor will be done in August-September 2022, coming up soon. We'll start the planning. And I'll hand over now actually to Dr. Troy from SIL Research, who will give you an overview of the survey findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, Mayor Wise, Madam Chair, elected councillors and Napier City Council team, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present an overview of the findings of the research we undertook last year. So without going and repeating everything that Michelle said, we did do a review of the questionnaire, which included those 4 areas that were highlighted. And yes, we did collect data right as we went into a level 4 lockdown. Not that was any of our planning, but it's just the way things worked out. But of course, the collection methods that we had adopted at that time, which Michelle mentioned, telephone, social media, online, email invitations, and postal, they're all contactless. So it didn't in any way get in the way of our collecting good quality, robust data. And of course, a larger sample size this year from 450 up to 610. So when you look at any piece of research, it's really important to consider the context and the environmental conditions that were present at the time of collecting it, both leading up to it in the recent past and obviously what's happening at that time. So the fact that we're still in the midst of the global pandemic, although things are beginning to loosen up a bit now, in August, September last year, we did go into that lockdown. There was also, in recent memory, we did have the floods, which affected several communities, Maraenui in particular, and also we did have several crime-related incidents. So you've just got to consider those things when we're looking at the context of the research that we undertook. So what we'll do is I'm just going to share the screen, and we're not going to go through every single page, but we will highlight a salient page as I begin talking about various aspects of the research. So we'll go here, so hopefully that'll share. I can see that. Right, so the first thing we'll quickly scroll to is life in Napier. So that's the first thing that we present in the research, and our findings show that 70% of residents rated life in Napier from good to very good, which is a positive result. It's not quite on par with 2020, which was up at almost 80%. But it is very, very similar to 2021. Again, we've got to consider those results in the context in which the research was undertaken. Good news being is that from this research, 82% of people saw themselves living in Napier in the next 5 years, which is an improvement on previous numbers. One of the things that our research does show is that any positive improvement to people's sense of improved safety in the community will have a direct influence on their sense of satisfaction and their quality of life while living here, and that's one of the things that we'll cover shortly. Overall, 37% of residents agreed that their quality of life had improved in the past year. That's even in the midst of the pandemic, and 40% mentioned that their quality of life had remained unchanged, which was similar to 2020. So what I'm going to talk about now briefly is safety. So we might just see if we can quickly skip to the safety page. 56% of residents agree they feel safe in Napier to some extent, which is up from the safety research we undertook in March 2021, which was only at around 45%, but it's still down on the social monitor research that we did in 2020, which was at 73%. So it's gone up slightly, but it has actually fallen back from when we collected the data in 2020. 33% of residents felt unsafe in Napier. And 6 out of 10 residents who felt unsafe and provided a comment believed that the lack of safety was due to increased gang presence and also of some personal experiences that they've actually had of crime. One of the things we do in the social monitor survey is we look at 3 different dimensions of safety. So safety, how safe people feel during the day, how safe they feel in their homes at night, and then how safe they feel when they're actually outside or they think about going outside at night. So when we look at it from those 3 dimensions, so 77% of residents said that they feel somewhat safe during the day, which is a positive result. At home at night, it drops down to 64%. And then when you look at going outside after dark, it drops down to 32%. So as people go out and venture into the community at night, there is a lessening of that sense of safety. Half of residents, that's 51%, reported feeling less safe in the past 12 months. And again, this was associated with perceptions of feeling less safe in the neighbourhood after dark and in the CBD at night. So just some considerations there. Just under a third reported they or a member of their household had been a victim of crime in the past 12 months, and 80% of residents said that they would always report dangerous or suspicious activities occurring in the neighbourhood. They would report that to the police. The survey, again, as I mentioned before, suggests that safety perceptions could influence willingness to go out in Napier after dark, so something to be mindful of. So what we'll do now is we'll go to community health and wellbeing. So our findings showed that 72% of residents believed that they were personally in good health, which is similar to the 70% that we had in 2020. So that's sort of sitting fairly consistently. Residents continue to report a good level of moderate to intense, moderate intensity activity, which is around just under 8 hours average a week. And the good news is that actually is higher than the minimum recommendations from the World Health Organization. So as a community, we do have some degree of physical activity. The mental well-being index, which is a measure of indicative psychological stress, was at moderate in Napier, which is a score of 10.2 with a maximum score going up to 20, and that was similar to the results that we had in 2020. One of the new areas that we looked into in more detail was the issue of community and social connection and diversity. And from this, we found that Napier residents provided on average positive ratings in relation to social connection. So it's around 78%, which was similar to 2020. However, the average score for accessibility declined. That went down to 55%, which is a 5% decrease on 2020. The community sense of diversity remained consistent in 2021 compared with previous years. And 7 out of 10 residents, that's around 71%, believe that it was somewhat or very easy to be themselves in Napier. 48% of residents believed an increasing number of people with different lifestyles and cultures make Napier a better place to live. One thing on the downside of this was still around half of residents, that's 49%, reported experiencing or seeing someone else experiencing prejudice or intolerance, most often associated with ethnicity. So that's an area that we may need to look at. And just in summary, other findings, over 2/3 of residents believed their neighbourhood has everything they need, and that was similar to 2020 figures, and felt a sense of pride in how their neighbourhood looks and feels. It's around 68%. And just under 50% of residents were satisfied with council's provision of civil defence, just down by 2%, which was in the margin of error from the findings that we had in 2020. And in the new area that we began to investigate this year, looking into the environment, around 60% of residents were concerned about the impacts of climate change in Napier. And at the same time, most residents named at least one environmental activity that they had been involved in the past 12 months. And 6 out of 10 residents named 5 or more activities. So there's a sense of community involvement there. And a good figure, 90% of Napier community reported minimising their waste by recycling regularly. So overall, in light of the fact that we're in the midst of a pandemic still, and we do have some safety issues, generally speaking, it's a good report when compared to the previous year. Any questions?
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Just a question under health and wellbeing, accessibility. There was comment related to traffic management. Was further data available on that, just to give us an idea what was meant by that commentary?
Through the chair, I'll ask Natalia to respond to that.
Thank you for your question. So basically, yes, all the comments that we had were open-ended, so we had to categorize them. And of course, a few comments were organized into one group, which we named traffic management, but everything to do with speeding on the streets, especially after night, burnouts, unsafe driving, noise associated with driving, all of that being combined into traffic management.
Thank you. Yep, no, that explains that result. Thank you.
Through the chair, just to add to that comment, also in the back of the report in the appendix, there's some useful information provided for each suburb around a bit more detail and more detail about the traffic management side of things as well. Thank you.
I have a question more directed at the staff, but thank you very much, Civil Research, for this very useful and informative piece of work. And it's very pleasing to know that the staff is going to be taking the findings into some of their work programs, which is great. Does this go up on the Pulse database? I'm just wondering how it will be accessed by the public, and will it be part of our Pulse database, or does it go somewhere else? Somebody could possibly answer that question. Thanks.
Kia ora, thank you for your question, Chair Bogue. Yes, we'll be putting the full report up onto our website, which we do annually anyway, and distributing it to key stakeholders. And some of the key measures definitely will be going into the Pulse and will be updated. So a lot of the wellbeing measures and some of the safety measures especially are included in the Pulse. So they'll be updated as soon as this report goes through your council meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Tapine.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. Greetings, guys. Thank you for that report. Really encouraging indicators. My question, I've got a question and a request to help me identify some data within the report. The first one is around the data-specific measures that are presented here, because I've noticed that you're able to track some changes within such thing as well-being, concepts of safety, perception of safety, transition into active activities, etc., etc. So while these are awesome indicators, which are difficult to tie down to specific things within our schedule of activities for the city, is there any way to, as a council, provide feedback, or does the current report in its structure enable us to be able to track with greater detail such things as pickup in the use of public transport or perceptions around public transport, cycling and moving into those active spaces, rather than the small sort of more general feel or general scope of things? That's the first question I have. Are we able to, or do you feel that currently the survey does do that, or is there scope for us to have a conversation around what specific trends we might want to take a closer look at?
Kia ora, through the chair, thank you, Councillor Tapine, for your question. I think the survey really does focus on people's perceptions, and there's other sources of information that we access and can access around people's behaviours, like how frequently they're using public transport, the use of the cycleways. I know Regional Council hold a lot of that information, and that's certainly, you know, a source that we can access. They've been quite willing to share their survey information with us, so we could always scope, you know, the opportunity to access other information that they may collect. So I guess in short, the survey is just one source of information that we can utilise, and there's other collections of information that I'm sure, you know, we could access to build the picture that you're talking about.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And you have indicated in the report actually that we're starting to see good alignment across our strategy. So I would expect to see some other measurements coming from those sectors as well. So that's fantastic. My second question is with regards to data in the report itself. Could you point me to within the report where I might be able to get a detailed breakdown of the participants by demographics?
By demographics, there's full information presented in tables in methodology on page 9, which tells you respondents by age, by gender, by home ownership, and ethnicity, and how long they've lived in the area. So these are the key things that we collect through the survey to ensure we talk to the whole community. And the key things like age, gender, and ethnicity, we have auxiliary data accessible through Statistics New Zealand, so we know what are proportional distributions within Napier catchment area, so we can check our sample to make sure that it has been representative.
Thank you. That's the page number I had in front of me. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, I find it helpful also that information is provided in the wards, so we can compare different parts of the city with each other. rather than get a picture of the city overall without those distinctions. So are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Tapine, you still have your hand up. Right, I can't actually see the participants at the moment. Thank you. Anybody else with their hand up? Right, if there's nothing to add, thank you very much for your presentation, Natalia and Virgil. Really appreciate your professionalism. And also thank you, Michelle, for your putting this paper together so well. Thank you. Right, it's simply, the officer's recommendation is simply receive this report. So could I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Tapine, seconded Councillor Mawson. Would you like to say anything more about this, Councillor Tapine or Mawson?
Only to add that it's fantastic to have this along with other measurements and the work that you guys do here to help us get a good understanding of the pulse and the feel from a statistic point of view. But as elected members, it's also great to have a balance out there in our communities to feel whether or not the data we're getting in these reports matches the look and feel of what we're seeing in our communities. And so they're good indicators. So let's hope they continue. Kia ora.
Councillor Mawson.
Yeah, just to add to that and just congratulate staff on a brilliant report by SIL, but also to congratulate staff. They're very passionate about what they do, and it's really good to have an opportunity to really apply the strategies that we've got. And we've got a few working groups happening now. So yeah, it's exciting, and I'll be very excited to get a move on with the multicultural strategy in the new financial year. Thank you.
Great. If there's no further comments, all those in favour, raise your hand, please. All those against, don't raise your hand. The recommendation is carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, this brings us to the end. Oh, there's no minor matters, right? So this brings us to the end of the meeting, and we're going to take a short break before the beginning of the Prosperous meeting in, say, 3 minutes. I'll see you back then. Thank you.